First up, I want to go across to Baijayant Panda, BJP National Vice President. He was also member of the Parliamentary Committee on Ethics in 2005 when the previous cash for query case had come to light. Mr. Panda, how serious is this charge of sharing your login and password as a parliamentarian? I believe this system only came into existence in 2019. How serious do you think this charge is?
It is, of course, very serious, and I'll come to that in a bit. You referred to the ethics committee of which I was part of nearly 20 years ago.
Yes.
It had real titans from across the political spectrum. It had the late Sushma Swaraj on that committee. Dr. Karan Singh was also on that committee. And as you have mentioned, the 11 MPs that were expelled from parliament were from across the political spectrum, from several different parties, both in government and opposition. It gave us no pleasure to see that evidence at that time. And the decision that the committee took obviously not only expelled those members, but it set a precedent that there can be absolutely no exoneration for taking cash or expensive gifts for posting questions in parliament. You know, even long before the technical age, parliament for for decades and for centuries has a protocol that even your speeches, you are not allowed to read from a script, because you're not supposed to be taking orders from anybody else outside. As a parliamentarian, you're supposed to be independent and ask questions that you yourself know that they're about. So giving your login to somebody else is akin to having a written statement given by somebody which you read out in parliament, where you are a proxy for them.
Right.
So that is not permissible. It's very serious, because you can make all kinds of excuses for it. But here it seems that quite possibly the login was given to somebody who was operating from a foreign location. And that itself is a very serious breach of national security. You can't be having parliamentary questions being posted by somebody who's not a parliamentarian, who's not a member of the staff who's authorized to submit papers for the parliamentarian, who in fact is a business person with his own vested interests, and who may have been accessing the parliamentary account of a parliamentarian from outside the shores of India. That is extremely serious, because it shows that the parliamentary system has been gamed, and members of parliament who are willing to put themselves up for sale are in fact just representing themselves as the PR wing or the liaison wing of corporate houses.
One of the defense that did come to light earlier, I don't know how much that counts now that Mr. Darshan Hiranandani himself has come out and said publicly that yes, he did pose those questions on her behalf, subject to inquiry and of course a case. But there was a defense that came to light earlier that you have a large staff and part of your staff also access your login.
Not from Dubai. And, there is a system where you can authorize a member of the staff to go and file. But even in the old days, whether on paper, it had to carry the signature of the MP. And even in the new system, the MP would have to receive an OTP and authorize a specific person to submit documentation on his or her behalf. And if the records show that was not happening from the MP's office, then it raises questions, and particularly if it is outside the country. Now, Parliament is not supposed to be a proxy for multinational individuals and corporate entities who directly submit questions. And you see, the signed document circulated by Mr. Hiranandani, the disclosures are extremely serious.
Yes.
Because you can see that the questions are being posted directly for the benefit of one corporate entity. Now, whatever be the merits of the questions is a different issue, but you cannot be, as a parliamentarian, acting as the liaison person of one corporate entity. That is just flatly illegal.
The point I'm trying to understand is that the offense here, that somebody else was giving her questions, if that is proved, or is the larger offense that they were doing it via her login, as far as the parliamentary procedure is concerned?
I think there are a number of very serious violations. As I was just explaining, I think you cannot be giving the login to outsiders who are not connected with Parliament, not connected with your being your authorized representative
Okay.
to submit documentation, and certainly not to somebody who's maybe a multinational corporate or individual entity. That itself is highly illegal because that system can be gamed. There are there are agencies of other countries who would definitely be able to tap into such a system if it was made allowable. So that is not acceptable. It's a breach of national security. Then, if you come to the question of receiving expensive gifts
Yes.
and cash, which has been disclosed in a written and signed statement by Mr. Hiranandani. Now, that is extremely serious. That is exactly the grounds on which 11 members lost their parliamentary membership, 11 MPs. And the precedent has been laid down. It's
Yes.
very unfortunate that we should be seeing a deja vu of that 18 years later.
No, I was going to come exactly to that. As part of the ethics panel, do you feel this panel is able to get into the proof of whether she received this money and expensive gifts also? And will that eventually become a criminal case as well, you feel?
Well, back in the earlier ethics case where I was a member of that committee along with Sushma Swaraj ji and Dr. Karan Singh and others, yes, the parliamentary committee did in fact receive all kinds of information and documents, and we came to the conclusion that there was indeed a violation of the rules. Now, remember something. Parliament is the highest lawmaking body in the nation. And the ethics committee, in a sense, represents its highest ideals because it lays down the ground rules for what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. And since there is a clear precedent of 11 MPs having been removed from Parliament's membership, so the precedent is clearly there. And it seems to be a deja vu because there is a written statement, signed statement by one of the accused who has turned a prover apparently, who says that that these crimes did actually occur. And I understand that this has been received by the ethics committee, today's ethics committee.
Yes.
And I would imagine that since the precedence exists, they will go through the same procedures of examining the evidence and making a decision.
My final question to you, Baijayant Panda, you're also, of course, BJP's National Vice President and a BJP parliamentarian. As a politician, what do you think is in store for Mahua Moitra, or what is the BJP's contention should happen in this case? Not just with the Ethics Committee, but also, of course, inquiries outside of Parliament as well.
Well, the allegations which are given in writing, the disclosures which are in writing are extremely serious, as I have just explained. And they, clearly this calls for disqualification, as has been, if those 11 members could lose their MPship, why should somebody be exempted because they can speak better English and are more projected by a certain section? Those poor 11 MPs followed the exact same path as the current MP, Mahua Moitra, in contention. So you can't have different rules for different people depending on what accents they speak in and whom they attack.
Sure.
In that case, 11 MPs from across political parties lost their membership. So it's not a question about partisanship. We took those decisions it was a difficult decision because people from various parties lost their membership. So it's not partisanship. It is about the ethics and norms and standards of Parliament. And, what has been disclosed in these signed documents is that there was a conspiracy angle to it where clearly, with the involvement of several people, a position was being taken. If 50 out of 61 questions, as is being disclosed in those statements, was done purely at the behest, not at the behest, directly by somebody else with a vested interest. That is simply not acceptable. It's illegal. And whether there will be investigations outside of Parliament or not, I don't want to comment now because I guess all the evidence has to be thoroughly analyzed. But surely the Ethics Committee can lay down the law in this regard, has done so in the past, and it should happen. The same precedents should be honored.
Can I ask you a very quick final question? What do you make of the TMC's silence in this regard? They haven't spoken a word on this yet.
I think it's very telling, isn't it? Because normally when, the MP in question has not refuted any of the allegations. Any statements coming out from Mahua Moitra, is all about making allegations about the motives of other people. But there is no refutation that cash was received. There is no refutation that gifts were received. There is no refutation that 50 of the 61 questions were directly to benefit one corporate entity. There is no refutation that logins were given to businessmen who may have been even operating outside the country. And if her own party is not defending her, I think that's very telling indeed, and I think that sort of predicts the road ahead.
All right. I leave it at that. Baijayant Panda, thanks a lot for speaking to us. This is indeed one of the most serious cases of ethics violations that have come to light in recent times for Indian Parliament, and remains to be seen what precedent will be set in this case as well.